Today we celebrate the feast day of the Passion or the beheading of St. John the Baptist. And St. John the Baptist is a very interesting character in the Bible. He really has one foot in the Old Testament and one foot in the New Testament. And with regard to the Old Testament, he's really a traditional prophet of the Old Testament, calling people to repentance, calling people back to God. But in terms of the New Testament, he points away to Christ. So St. John the Baptist is a man who's very much, he has he has one foot in the Old Testament and one foot in the New Testament. Today we celebrate his martyrdom. We celebrate the fact that he died. And he died, what did he die for? He died defending marriage. He died defending the sanctity and the integrity of marriage. He aroused Herod's anger because Herod was in an illicit marriage. And so John the Baptist called him out on that. John the Baptist reprimanded him for this. And as a result of this, he lost his life. The prophets are those, there's a lot of misunderstanding when in our common language when we hear prophet. Prophet is often seen as a fortune teller, kind of like a psychic that you call, that you go to, and he predicts the future for you. But that's not what a prophet is. A prophet in the biblical sense of the word is one who calls people back to God. It's one who calls people back to fidelity to God, back to the covenant with God. And we see that the prophets in the Old Testament arose at times when the Jewish people were not faithful to the covenant. Perhaps they had fallen into idolatry, or they were integrating pagan practices, or they had grown slack. They had grown lax in their religious practices and observances of the Mosaic law. Or perhaps it was a period of social disintegration where everything seemed lost. And so the prophets arose in these very difficult times to call people back to God. They called them back to fidelity to the covenant and back to fidelity to God. And that's really what a prophet is. He's one who calls people back to God. St. John the Baptist was a prophet. He was a prophet in the sense that he called people to God. He called people he pointed the way to the incarnate God, to the God among us. He pointed the way to Christ. And like the prophets of the Old Testament, John the Baptist suffered a martyr's fate. John the Baptist died for his proclamation of the truth. And he died essentially defending the covenant of marriage, the sanctity of marriage. He condemned Herod for marrying his brother's wife, which was against the Mosaic law. It was essentially incest. And so he said to Herod, you need to cease doing this and you need to be faithful to marriage. Yesterday we watched a movie, Fatima, about Our Lady of Fatima. And one of the predictions that Our Lady of Fatima made was that the final battle between good and evil would be waged over the family. It would be waged over marriage. And we're seeing that very much today. We live in a culture that is that has really forsaken the whole concept of marriage, as man has understood it for thousands of years, as it's been known for centuries, as a union as a lifelong union for the purposes of bringing about new life into the world. That's what all societies have understood marriage to be, from the most primitive to our um, to our culture very recently. It's part of natural law that marriage is a covenant to bring about new life. Um, and when we lose that as a culture, we see the effects of it. And we're seeing the effects of it in our own culture today. We're seeing it in our streets and in our courtrooms and throughout our country. We're seeing the effects of our neglect of family life and our distortion of the purposes of marriage. And so we need prophets in our own day to call people back to fidelity, to remind people of the nature of marriage, to remind people of the importance of family life, to remind people that family life is the primary institution within culture. The family is the primary institution within culture, not the individual. Our liberal culture, by liberal I mean in the very broad sense, teaches that the individual is the basis of society. But the church teaches, and indeed human history has taught for thousands of years, that the family is the basis of society. And when you have healthy families, you have a healthy culture. The notion that the individual and not the family is the basis of society arose is a very recent idea on our culture. Perhaps beginning in the 18th century, even the 19th century. It would have been unthought of before then. Even the very early liberal thinkers like Locke would have never envisioned such a thing. So today we need prophets who are going to be like St. John the Baptist, who are going to teach the world about the importance of family life, who are going to remind people about the importance of marriage and the ends of marriage. That marriage is for babies and for bonding. That marriage is a covenant, a lifetime, an indissoluble covenant. This message is very countercultural today, and like St. John the Baptist, we may be persecuted for proclaiming it, but ultimately the health of our culture, the health of everything ultimately depends upon us preserving this.